Good morning to all our listeners tuning into Hot Topic and Fresh News, today, September 3rd, 2024. We're diving straight into a pressing development out of Israel where protests continue to escalate. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu faces severe backlash for his handling of ongoing hostage negotiations with Hamas. The turmoil reached new heights as thousands of Israelis participated in the largest demonstration since early October, coinciding with a general strike that effectively paralyzed the nation. This unrest was triggered by the tragic deaths of Israeli-American Hersh Goldberg-Polin, aged 23, and 5 other hostages. Criticism is mounting against Netanyahu, with accusations that his political motives are overshadowing efforts to secure the hostages' release. At a funeral, a distraught father mourned the inability to bring his child and other hostages back alive. Meanwhile, Netanyahu remains firm, defending his strategic choices in a recent news briefing, insisting that maintaining a military presence along the Gaza-Egypt border is essential to prevent further tragedies. This stance has, however, drawn criticism from President Joe Biden, who argues that more could be done to advance negotiations. Amidst these tensions, Israel's military has been actively retrieving the remains of hostages from Gaza, signaling a crucial yet heart-rending phase of the crisis. On the domestic front, the National Labor Court declared the strike a political act, leading to an earlier-than-expected cessation. Protests have not been without incident, with police detaining 29 individuals amidst confrontations. In Gaza, a brief halt in hostilities allowed for a vital polio vaccination drive among children. This situation remains fluid, and we'll be keeping a close watch as it unfolds. Stay with us on Hot Topic and Fresh News for continuous updates on this and more. Hello and welcome everyone, this is Emily coming to you live from Hot Topic and Fresh News.
And I'm David News Talk, thrilled to be here.
We're delighted to have you join us. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to stay updated with the latest news. Straight to the hot topics.
What can you tell us about the scale of these protests and their impact on daily life in Israel?
The protests have been massive, with thousands of Israelis taking to the streets, including a significant disruption on October 7th. The general strike that unfolded really brought the country to a standstill, affecting transportation and even reducing hospital operations to only emergency services. Businesses closed, and highways were blocked, all in a united front demanding action from the government.
Can you elaborate on the significance of Netanyahu's response to the hostage crisis?
Certainly. In his televised address, Prime Minister Netanyahu expressed regret for not being able to save the 6 hostages recently recovered from Gaza. He remains firm on not withdrawing Israeli forces from the Philadelphia corridor, stressing that such a move would only embolden Hamas to expect more concessions in exchange for the lives of hostages. This stance has been a key point of contention.
Amid these intense protests and political pressures, what's the mood among the families of the hostages?
The mood is one of deep frustration and sorrow. John Polin, father of Hersh Goldberg-Polin, voiced a poignant apology at his son's funeral, reflecting a broader sentiment among the families who feel let down by their government. They continue to push for a more decisive effort to secure the release of nearly 100 remaining hostages still in Gaza.
With Netanyahu standing firm and the public outcry growing, what's the next likely step in this unfolding crisis?
The pressure is certainly mounting for a breakthrough in negotiations. While Netanyahu holds his ground, the public and political opponents are calling for immediate action to ensure the safe return of all hostages. This situation remains highly dynamic, with potential shifts in policy or new rounds of negotiations possibly on the horizon.
It's a critical juncture indeed. And with both sides so entrenched, the international community's role could be pivotal in breaking this deadlock. How significant is the involvement of the United States in this hostage negotiation?
It's quite critical. President Joe Biden, along with Vice President Kamala Harris, has been actively involved, meeting with the U.S. hostage team to push forward a final take-it-or-leave-it proposal in collaboration with Qatar and Egypt. This shows a direct and high-level engagement from the United States, signaling the urgency and global importance of resolving this crisis.
Netanyahu has been firm on not reducing the Israeli military presence along the Philadelphia corridor. What are the implications of this stance?
This insistence complicates the negotiation dynamics significantly. While Israel argues that the corridor is a route for weapons smuggling by Hamas, this stance is seen as a major stumbling block in reaching a ceasefire deal. It's a delicate balance between security concerns and humanitarian needs, and right now, it's tipping towards a security-first approach.
With the National Labor Court's recent ruling, how do you perceive the public's response to the government's handling of the protests?
The court's decision, labeling the strike as political rather than a legitimate labor action, has only fueled more dissent. Despite this, the public's response through widespread protests and the symbolic wearing of shirts with the word sorry shows a deep national trauma and a collective call for change. It's a profound display of solidarity and sorrow.
And what about the president's remarks regarding the hostages and the role of the international community?
Israeli President Isaac Herzog's comments were poignant. By calling the rescue of hostages a Jewish mission rather than a political one, he's appealing to a broader moral and communal obligation. This call to the international community underscores the necessity for a collaborative effort to resolve the hostage situation, which has clearly become more than a national issue. It's a humanitarian crisis.
Lastly, how might these developments affect the political landscape in Israel?
These events are likely to have profound implications. With Netanyahu under intense scrutiny and the public outcry at an all-time high, there might be significant shifts in the political sphere. Continuous pressure could force policy changes or even leadership adjustments, depending on how the situation unfolds in the coming weeks. This remains a critical story for the world, not just Israel.
Could you explain the division within Israeli society regarding the continuation of the war in Gaza?
Absolutely. The division is stark. On one side, there are those who argue that the war should continue until Hamas is destroyed, a goal that even military leaders deem unrealistic. On the other, a growing segment believes that the priority should be to secure the safe return of the hostages, a sentiment that has intensified with the recent events and the tragic outcomes for some hostages.
What is the significance of the general strike that occurred and its political implications?
The general strike marks a critical juncture. It's not just about labor issues, it's a direct challenge to the government's policy on Gaza. The fact that major business groups and retailers supported the strike shows a broad-based backlash against the current administration's approach. Cities like Tel Aviv and Haifa closing their governments in support of the strike accentuates the divide between more liberal and conservative areas.
How are political leaders responding to this division and the calls for a change in strategy?
Netanyahu's administration has been very critical, labeling the strike and other protests as politically motivated rather than legitimate labor actions. Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich even accused labor leader Arnon Bar-David of aligning with Hamas's interests, which illustrates the heightened tensions and the polarizing nature of this issue.
With the hostages situation as a focal point, what pressures or changes could Netanyahu face moving forward?
Netanyahu is at a crossroads. Public pressure is mounting for a shift in policy, especially from those who have lost loved ones or still have family members held hostage. This, combined with the international attention and internal political pressure, could potentially force a significant recalibration of his strategy in Gaza, especially if the general sentiment continues to sway towards prioritizing the hostages' lives over military actions.
Can you detail the recent actions by Defense Minister Yoav Gallant and their implications on the ceasefire efforts?
Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has been a vocal advocate for reaching a ceasefire deal, which puts him at odds with some decisions made by the cabinet, including the refusal to withdraw troops from the Gaza-Egyptian border. Gallant's call to reverse this decision highlights a significant internal rift within the Israeli leadership. This discord could potentially influence the broader strategy in Gaza, especially as public pressure mounts to prioritize hostage lives over continued military engagement.
What happened during the recent protests, and how did the authorities respond?
The protests escalated significantly, with demonstrators blocking a major highway in Tel Aviv for 3 hours. The police response was intense, deploying horse patrols, stun grenades, and water cannons. 29 protesters were arrested. These confrontations underscore the deepening societal divisions and the increasing desperation of many Israelis for a resolution.
There was a limited pause in fighting in central Gaza. How is this affecting humanitarian efforts?
Despite the ongoing conflict, this pause has been crucial for humanitarian interventions. Over 87,000 children in central Gaza were vaccinated against polio, thanks to the efforts coordinated by UNRWA. This pause, though brief, indicates that even in times of conflict, there are opportunities to carry out essential health interventions, which are critical given the detection of the polio virus in regional sewage samples back in July.
With all these developments, what can we expect in the coming days?
We're likely to see more street demonstrations, especially with the organizers calling for continued public action. The internal political pressures and public outcry may push the Israeli cabinet to reconsider its stance, particularly if Defense Minister Gallant continues to press for changes. Meanwhile, the humanitarian situation in Gaza remains precarious, and any further pauses in fighting could be critical for additional aid efforts. The dynamics are fluid, and the next few days could be pivotal in shaping the course of these events. Thanks for tuning into Hot Topic in Fresh News today. We dove deep into the complexities of the ongoing situation in Gaza, discussing the latest developments and the impact on both local and international communities. Your engagement really helps us keep the conversation relevant and insightful. Remember to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you're always updated. We value your thoughts and would love to see your comments and shares.
And hey, make sure you don't miss our daily episodes. Who knows what tomorrow's news will bring? But one thing's for sure, it'll be interesting, and we'll be here to break it down for you. Spread the word, and keep the discussions lively, whether it's over coffee or your social media feeds.
We're grateful for your time and your insights. Looking forward to having you with us in the next episode.
Stay sharp, stay informed, and as always, Emily and David News Talk, stay in the loop, keep your eyes on the news, our channel's content will amuse.